And we are now live. That seems to take longer every time that I press that button.
I'm always worried. Every time I do it, Kev, I'm always worried I'm sitting there and I'm waiting and I'm not saying anything.
I know.
A couple of times the guys have actually said to me, "So we starting?" And I'm like, "Oh crap, we're live."
It does that. It's just that delay. It's a delay between us hitting the button, and it's getting to about a good 10 seconds now before it actually kicks on live, eh? Oh, good afternoon, everybody. My name's Kevin Graham, and today I'm joined by Double Denim Chris for basically an international weekend review. There is a light at the end of the tunnel, Chris, and it is the light at the end of the tunnel. It is the end of the tunnel, and that's a half man, half biscuit reference for all you half man, half biscuit fans out there. Nice. We're getting to the end of the international break, and the majority of our players are going to be coming back soon. I think correctly, I think it'll only be the Japanese guys and the South Koreans, Yang basically, that are playing late Tuesday night, I think. Yeah. And all the rest of the players will be coming back. It's been a long week, eh? It has been a long week so far.
Oh, it's a tough one, Kev. Yeah, I mean, look, I don't mind international football so much, although my priority's always on Celtic. Apologies, anyone. My voice is a bit croaky. I'm just coming back for a week's worth of the dreaded manthrax or the man flu or however you want to, the lurgy, depending on what you want to say.
Is that not? Was that not a Swedish heavy metal band?
It may have been actually, yeah, manthrax. But so apologies, my voice does start to go a little still. Most people will be happy with that if my voice cuts off anyway. But yeah. It's I don't mind watching Scotland. I don't mind watching Ireland, a few of the international boys as well. But yeah, you miss your club team. I miss Celtic when we're not playing, and we've been kind of partly spoiled. Although I appreciate that the hit is taken on the players by having multiple games a week sometimes over the course of this season. And it's been great to watch. I know obviously problems people travelling and the cost of getting there. So maybe having that one game a week is not too bad. But then when you have to go a full week international football and you've no hoops, and we're coming back off that Derby defeat, you're just keen to get the boys back on the park and get the momentum up again. So yeah, it's been a bit of a tough week, to be honest. I mean, feeling a bit rubbish through it as well, but not having hoops to kind of look out for. Although props to Paul John and Liam at the weekend doing the old classic review. I did the first one with them a few months back, and it was really good fun actually. And then I enjoyed watching Paul John and Liam doing it at the weekend, where they covered the game from, I think it was 2000. It was the Celtic Aberdeen game, the cup final. I was actually at that game.
So was that, and I've never watched it back since I was at the game. No, the only time I've ever seen that game was in real time.
I think that was the most I've enjoyed the game, was actually sitting watching it with Paul John and Liam. But there is a funny story with that game. It was my mother at the time. She worked for a chap who was a member of the SFA. I think he was on the board at St Mirren, but he used to get debenture seats for the games at Hampden. So if it was Celtic, and she'd offer them. So me and my old man went to watch the game. But as we're walking in, and we've been told, you're going into the good seats, the debenture seats. So don't wear your colours or anything. Just wear something smart. So it's a shirt and tie. I was only what, 19, 20 at the time, probably 19. And so went in. Me and my dad were there, and we're walking by, and we're seeing Gordon Strachan and Mark McGee there. So right, yeah, but Celtic against Aberdeen, and we're just seeing an awful lot of red as we're walking in. We're like, where's the Celtic fans? Where are they going? And we ended up, for some reason, and it wasn't just us, it was a few fans must have got misplaced, but we ended up sitting in amongst the Aberdeen fans. And we're like, this is a bit hostile. And to be fair, the Aberdeen boys were great. They were the boys we were sat next to just found it really funny, so they were okay. But of course, Celtic were out. They do the huddle, and my dad had said to me, he says, son, we'll really get too pent up. We'll just keep our heads down and just enjoy the game. But of course, they'll do the huddle. You've got to stand up and cheer. So we just shit. Oh, we got moved. We got moved before half time. I mean, I think when Celtic scored, that was when it started to get a wee bit dangerous. And next thing you were getting bags of pokes of chips and iron brew balls and stuff were getting launched in the direction of us and a few select other fans. So
I wouldn't have wasted the chips.
Well, absolutely. But it was ended up being not a bad day. I mean, despite it was a tough season, that one, with Henrik being out and obviously John Barnes' era, and But do you know the one thing that I really loved about that season? The only thing I really loved about that season, the last point I'll make on it is, after coming through the 90s as a supporter, and the Tommy Burns era as manager, him and Billy Stark and all the great players that we had then, even though we'd, were second best to that Rangers team. At the end of that season, Tommy Burns was essentially in charge of the team again, and it was wonderful given, how the man had come back to the club and he was playing such a pivotal role in the dugout. And then obviously that led to the next season where, we brought in the great Martin O'Neill. So there was a bittersweet moment for me in that season. I always remember Henrik coming back in the last game and playing a magnificent 7. I didn't get on the score sheet, but I always remember, having him and Tommy Burns, and it always makes you think, what's the what if? What if Henrik had been playing under a Tommy Burns team? Imagine how we'd have done then. But yeah, so it was a good wee show that weekend. I enjoyed that.
There is a what if as well, that what would have happened if Henrik hadn't got injured. And that night in Lyon, I was there that night in Lyon when he got injured, and it was a tough bus journey back from the south of France. In the days where I could do bus journeys like that, but I don't think it would have mattered. I think John Barnes, even he's still continuing to prove himself to have opinions like piles. He didn't really want them, but sometimes you get them. His last one there, the guy's a failed manager. He failed at Celtic. He failed at Tranmere, I think, as well. He blamed everybody else ever since for his failure. He didn't understand what it meant to be a Celtic manager, and I must admit, I think Kenny's maybe got a lot to do with that. When you actually read him, go back and listen to the podcast that Paul done with him. It's one of the best. It's one of the best podcasts Acsom I've ever done. It's absolutely explosive about what was happening in the changing room at that time, and it's a great podcast. And the man was out his depth, really out his depth, and he's still out his depth, even commenting on Celtic. For a guy, it was such a great football player. For a guy, especially for me growing up, he broke down an awful lot of doors to John Barnes. He really did for Liverpool, England, and that. But he just comes across as a bit of an idiot. Actually, when he's got no right to comment on Celtic Football Club, no right whatsoever, after he completely failed up here.
Yeah, and I think the weird thing is I've not encountered a lot of bitterness towards John Barnes, from a lot of supporters. I know there's elements of it, but
no, he's not Pat Nevin anyway.
No, absolutely. But a great player, and at the time you're thinking, this is interesting. Kenny Dalglish is coming in, so we knew what he could do as a manager, and you're looking at John Barnes and you're thinking, he carries a lot of clout, certainly as a player, and you think, maybe something can happen here. Obviously, it became very apparent very early on that it wasn't going to work out for him, and we've heard since from ex-players, who were there, Johan Mjällby being one who says, he came in and, I think one of the first things that he said was, Celtic's a big club, but not the same size, big as Newcastle now. You can't come to Celtic with that mindset, it's just not, whether you believe that or not, it's just, idiotic. But, then I've heard players talking about his tactical, decisions, the famous 4-2-2-2 formation that he tried to play, and playing Petrov as a right back, I think it was as well, was just bizarre, and that there was there were just a whole host of decisions. But at the same time, I think a lot of people appreciated that he was, he's probably out of his depth. So I've never heard people saying, "Oh, that John Barnes, he's a nightmare." Just people saying it wasn't the right fit at the right time, and there was a combination of things that went wrong in that season. But yeah, you're right, to come out now and actually be making comments like Brendan's got lucky at Celtic, and some of the the underhanded remarks about the club and the circumstances. I think he's not really learned his lesson from that old Newcastle remark, has he?
No, he hasn't. No, he hasn't. I mean, I suppose we'll talk about international football, and I'm not going to talk about Pat Nevin's comments on Off the Ball yesterday, because I think that was just lowest of the low. Really a broad swipe at the Celtic support, really, for what he actually says. I don't know if I will bring it up. I mean, he was on Off the Ball, and he was telling Cowan and I think it was Cosgrove. I never actually heard it myself. I only got past it that he was getting abuse in Munich on the way home from some Celtic fans. And he says he was glad that a Jewish guy walked into the departure lounge because that would take the pressure off him. That's what he says on a national broadcaster. And that's a racial slur.
Absolutely.
To all Celtic fans, you know what I mean? That really, really poor for Pat Nevin. Really, really poor.
It is, and it's one of these things where you expect a degree of professional accountability. You cannot make sweeping generalist statements like that. Even those that don't have those racial connotations, you can't do it in that position. And you expect a journalist to have that degree of professional integrity. And I think for me that demonstrated that it's not there. And it seems like, Celtic fans are a bit of an easy target for certain quarters at the moment. And it's an easy target, but it's misdirected, because Celtic as a club are not a club that discriminates. We don't, right? It's actually fundamentally against what we stand for. What we do stand against is oppression, genocide, the subjugation of people, because these are things that are rooted in the history of the club. Now, look, I'm not going to stand here and sit here and become a historian and start, getting on my soapbox and talking about all the how wonderful we are and how awful other quarters are. No, but what I would say is that was just such an ignorant statement rooted in complete falsehood. And I think it was actually said at the weekend by Liam as well. I thought it was said very articulately. There seems to be this view that because we are in support of those who are suffering in Palestine, right? We don't support terrorist groups. We don't support the actions that result in the innocent, the loss of lives of innocents and things like that. But what we do is we'll stand up for where we see injustice, and the lines on a map don't dictate whether you're a good person or a bad person. Your actions do, right? And so what we do is we'll condemn horrible actions as a support, and we will show solidarity with those who are suffering. It doesn't matter where they're coming from, right? We'll do that. And we're always at first to acknowledge that, look, there are two sides to a conflict. There are casualties on both sides. It's institutions and regimes that are behind a lot of this. But the point is that we would never, abuse Lila Bara for coming back simply because he happened to be born on one side of a map. No, but if Lila Bara picks up a gun and shoots somebody, well, then we might have an issue with that, right? It's let's not overcomplicate it. Let's keep it nice and simple. We support good people. We support the things which are, are viewed as wrong. Is viewed as standing up against what's wrong. But we don't, we don't take sides as such. Our side is on what we like to think is the right side of history. So it was just a lazy, ill-advised. You don't know the emotions of the guy, right? So we'll give him that very, very light.
It's a bad joke, and I'm talking for somebody who tells loads of bad jokes. That sometimes, as soon as I say them, I go, "Oh, that's maybe a wee bit close to the bone," and it's possibly where he was as well, and the nature of that show, where he thought he would maybe say it as a sort of tongue in cheek, but it's there has been tongue in cheek, and there's like no being tongue in cheek. I mean, if he did really think that when he was sitting in an airport departure lounge, then sorry, mate, you need to really have a look at yourself. you actually really need to have a look at yourself if you really did think that, especially the amount of abuse. I mean, you talk about the Motherwell Cup final when he started going on about the Celtic fans singing, and everybody in this everybody in the studio just looked at him as if they go, "What are you actually going on about?"
Yeah.
Look, I'm going to move on. I mean, international football. I must admit, watching the international games last night, there was a lot of big hitters playing against each other, and there was a lot of good games that actually makes the Nation League sound like a worthwhile like competition.
Absolutely.
I mean, you had Spain against the Netherlands. You had France playing Croatia. You had Portugal, Denmark, which we will need to actually speak about, and what was the other one that was on? Germany, Italy. mean, a lot of big hitters playing each other, a lot of goals in the games, eh? And I was flicking about the channels, and because every time I was going, what one can I watch? That's the problem now. Eh? You've got so many options of what you want to watch. So I actually decided, right, I'm going to watch Portugal against Denmark. One, there is a Scotland connection there after Scotland got completely battered yesterday by the Greeks, and I says, right, whoever loses this game's ending up in Scotland's group, and you've also got Kasper Schmeichel.
Absolutely.
And right away, when Schmeichel went down last night, I mean, he saved the penalty, but then I think he lost 2 goals where I went, he might have done better there, mate. It was one of them, I was going, you might have done better if I was being really, really critical of you. Then he went down. And as soon as he went down, I went like that wearing ball because of the way that he actually reacted. And it was quite weird. Obviously, the goal's been chopped. It's obviously the goal's been chopped off for offside. The linesman never put his flag up. I think it's close. I think the linesman's probably quite right to keep his flag down, as in the rules of the game as it is. That's a completely different topic that we would actually need to talk about. I think he's maybe okay to actually keep his flag down. What really got me though, have you seen the incident, Chris?
I saw it, yeah. I saw it this morning, yeah.
Was the way Kasper went down. It looked like when he went to dive at Jota's feet, his left arm never extended, and he went down sort of right on the shoulder. So I don't know whether it is because something's went when he's tried to extend his left arm, or whether he went, this is offside and I didn't want to pull Jota down, and the way that he's fell is actually done his shoulder. But as soon as he tried to get back up, and you saw the way that he was actually holding himself, and that right away, I put in the Acsom group chat. I went, that's bad. I went right away. That is really, really bad. And I was backed up with Declan right away. He says, aye, that is really, really bad. Yeah. I didn't realise at the time, because I had been flicking through the channels, I didn't realise that Denmark had made their 6 substitutions.
Aye, so and the first time, so they couldn't take him off. Yeah.
Aye. So I was really, really, I was going, why are they not taking him off? Why are they not taking him off? He can hardly move. Anytime that he was trying to move, he was wincing in pain. Then he made a great save with his opposite arm in the second half, and that's the meme that's doing the round when you actually hear him screaming. And look, coming out the Danish camp, it says he's went to hospital. The scans no showed up anything abnormal. I didn't really care what that means. What means? There's a rumour as well that I just read before I came on here that he was spotted in Lisbon airport this morning, no way duty free, but with his arm in a sling. I don't think he's making Saturday. I really don't think he's. I really don't think he's making Saturday. It's a blow for us that me thinking to myself, obviously negative. I go that could be a dislocated shoulder there. Yeah, and that could be season ending. And that when I went to my bed last night, that's what I was worried about, that his hangway was going to be season ending.
And that, I mean, that's the fear, right? Because I mean, shoulder injuries are bad enough when you're an outfield player, as we saw with Kyogo. But when you're a goalkeeper, I mean, that's fundamental to your day in day out training and your work. And listen, I played fives a few years ago and went for an absolute Hollywood saves. We should never do it fives, particularly when you don't play regularly. I was playing in goal, and I landed on my shoulder and got up and thought, oh, immediately something didn't feel right. And sure enough, I had fractured my collarbone and shoulder. It all split down. So that highlighted to me at the time that it's actually really easy for that type of injury to occur. And I think when you see his reaction after the injury and then subsequently as he plays on, he's in real discomfort. There's real issues there. And you take into a lot of factors. You take into account the games are going to come thick and fast. His age, I know, 30, 38, 39, whatever Kasper is at the moment, it's not old, but your recovery time as a professional does take longer. As you advance in years, maybe less so for a goalkeeper. But I always look at James Forrest and how long it's taken him to recover from injuries compared to when he was younger. So there is a high possibility he could be out for, if not to the end of the season, but at least a good chunk of it. So I think that the question is now is cometh the hour, cometh the man. Is this the time for Sinisalo to finally show us what he can do and get a regular run? Do we go back to the well with Benzo? You'd like to think not. You'd like to think, Sinisalo is surely brought in for this very reason, right? So you're thinking, is this a guy that's time to come in? And look, from what we understood about the signing of, the dual signing of Casper and Sinisalo, it was that, Casper would be the immediate first choice and, he'd help bring and integrate, Sinisalo in. So these are the kind of moments that you're thinking of players there and hopefully ready to step up. So yeah, I would agree with you. I think it's unlikely, unless there's some sort of miracle recovery, that Casper will play. I do think there's maybe a wee touch of excitement to it. The only positive on it is a wee touch of excitement. Well, maybe this is where we see, start to see some evidence of why Sinisalo was so highly rated when we brought him in. See what he can do.
But you didn't want to see your main goalkeeper injured.
You don't
for a goal that didn't count.
I know,
in a game that they were already out. Then he actually played another 20 odd minutes.
That's just crazy. That is a crazy part of the situation, right? Having to play on with one arm essentially.
He did. He was playing on with one arm. He was like. He was like Sylvester Stallone in Escape to Victory. So he played on with one arm. The Flying Haggis agrees with you, Chris. It's good timing, to be honest. It gives young Sinisalo a good run without too much pressure. There is still a wee bit of pressure because we're coming in back on the back of a disappointing Derby defeat. And it's one that I'm actually looking at now more logically, I think, more sensibly, with less emotion, to actually say we've probably done enough to get a draw, but there was a mistake at the end of the game and it was a coin flip and they got the break of the ball. We didn't. We still had a massive chance to equalise after that with Alistair Johnson and it didn't happen. But we've got to get back in the saddle, back on the horse, as I would say, and that's Saturday. Oh, Paddy Laverty is quite right. That was Pele. It was Pele. It was the Sylvester Stallone.
He did an overhead kick.
He did. Thank you, Paddy. I can't. I would have got my cultural touchstone wrong there. Aye. I mean, Sylvester Stallone must be the worst goalkeeper I've ever seen. Must be.
Oh, without a doubt, yeah. I mean, it's pretty bad, but he's probably the worst goalkeeper in the whole movie. He's not even the best actor. You've got
John Walk's a better actor.
John Walk in there, yeah.
Somebody's got to have a go at me for mentioning John Watt because he has allegiances as well. Somebody's bound to actually say that.
Oh yeah. We always got Ardiles and a few others in there with Pelly. Yeah, I'm trying to remember some of the other players, but you're right. I mean, you talk about emotion after the Derby game. I mean, God, me and Sean were on it right after we were on the post match, and it's so tough to analyse it. And to be honest, poor Sean, he took the pelters because it's probably the most emotional I've seen Sean. He's usually pretty objective when he talks, but he could just tell he's like, I'm not having this with the referee, and went right in at it, and people just picked up on that. Whereas, we both said at the time we were not playing to our best. Rangers, came with a game plan. They executed it pretty well, and I think they, fair play to them. That's I think their celebration, clearly they've got the league over the line, but based on that celebration, I mean, I didn't realise at the end of that game that the league was over. So, congratulations on the title victory. But I'm joking, obviously, a bit of banter. But it wasn't a nice game to watch. We showed some decent character to come back into the game. Couple of players got pass marks. Jota, Idah again. Nawrocki, I think, has rightly come away with a bit of credit given how rusty he must have been, but I don't know if there's enough yet to say he's going to be,
as soon as Trusty's fit and Scales is back, we'll never see Nawrocki again. We're not going to see Nawrocki again. The only reason that we're putting him on this sort of pedestal after the game is because he didn't mess up.
Yeah,
he didn't
which
mess
is the
up.
minimum expectation, right?
Aye. So that's the reason. There's a reason that Rodgers doesn't fancy him. There's a reason that he is our fifth choice centre back, maybe fourth choice at least. Joint fourth with probably with Dane Murray, is because he can't pass the ball and he's as slow as a week in the jail. That's it. That's why Brendan Rodgers doesn't like him. And Rodgers can praise him all he wants, and he might have to come on it this weekend because we don't know about Austin Trusty's injury. I'm sure we'll find that out later in the week. But if Trusty's fit, Trusty plays, and that's it basically. I wasn't really grabbing onto the Rocky positive after the game because I knew exactly what it was. It was just
it was
desperation stage at that point.
Yeah, absolute necessity. Yeah, no, fair enough. I mean, it's almost, hopefully you think it gives a wee nudge to the board to say, look, we've done pretty decent in recruitment windows recently, but, this shows you there's more required. And it's not just about bringing in numbers, and it's not just about bringing in, players that can develop. We need more quality. We need quality reinforcements. And actually, we need more competition in places. I looked at our bench, and a lot of people commented at the time to say, well, it's a pretty decent first team. Okay, we didn't have Kalmak, but it was a pretty decent first team. Most people would have picked that, with the exception of Navrojki, obviously, which was a forced change. But the bench didn't inspire you with a lot of confidence. There wasn't a lot on there that you'd look at and say that's a game changer. A lot of people talk about Yang and the impact he's made when he's come on in cameos, and he's getting better and better. But you still don't look at Yang as a player that's going to come off and win you the game. And I don't mean that to be disrespectful of the player, but he's not quite built up that credit yet,
I'm still at panic stations when Yang comes on. I'm still up. And that's... It was a game against Hibs as well. I'm still at panic stations when he comes on because he hasn't done it consistently for me yet. And it takes a wee while to build up that trust or get rid of this emotional bias that you've actually got. Because you have got emotional bias, so that's it. And sometimes it takes players a wee while to get over it, and I'm still like that with Yang.
He does, but he's moving in the right direction. He's doing a lot of the right things, and that's all you can ask. So, like I say, I see Yang as for me, he's got another addition. He's on, Celtic's got talent. He's got another addition between now and the end of the season. Go and show what you can do. Go and show that you deserve a jersey, if not necessarily a starting jersey rather. Go and show that you deserve to be part of this squad, that you can actually be trusted to come on and do the job consistently. So Yang, for me, he's got that opportunity. Navrojki, I think that's, as you say, that's kind of clear now. But when you looked, there was a lot of youngsters on there. Kenny, you're looking at thinking, well, he's no really managing to impose himself into the striking, position. I wouldn't say he's done massive wrong when he's had the opportunity. He's just not had really the opportunity. But is that down to the manager not having the faith in him, or what he's seen in training? So,
but again, then Chris, as I says on Friday, if you're bringing on Kenny, you're more than likely taking off Idah. And you've brought Idah on at half time, unless you're changing the formation. And I think at that point, for me, one of the major reasons that Rodgers didn't make those subs was because it was at 2 each, and he went, well, just didn't lose the game, and he didn't want to gamble too much. I reckon he didn't play a hand that he would have played. I think he would have maybe changed the shape if it was 2-1. But at 2 each, I don't think he wanted to actually change the shape too much.
And the 2 each, Rangers bring on 3 players who come in and make a bit of a difference. We bring on 2 players, leave a bit of experience on the bench, but another day, another set of circumstances, we could have went on and got the win, or at least held on to the draw. But look, as what it is, the advantage of building up a 13-point lead or a 16-point lead as it was at the time is you've got that buffer. You can, as much as it's difficult to take the loss and the performance, you've got that buffer to say, okay, we take this one on the chin, and we think, okay, let's learn from it to an extent. You always hope the manager and the players will learn from it, and they'll feel the pain, because the supporters certainly do. And they'll say, right, we don't want that to happen again, especially in front of your own fans. So go out with the next game and have a point to prove, and say we are better than what we displayed on that game. So that's what I'm hoping. You want to see a reaction, and I think you give the manager and the players the opportunity to to show you that reaction, because that's what building up the 13-point leads allows you, right? It gives you just that wee bit of credit in the bank to say, okay, you know what, we got that one wrong. Bad day at the office. However, let's go and show what we can do in the next game. Kev, mate, I'm sorry. I do have to jump onto a meeting, mate, so I'm going to have to leave you on your own, which I hate doing. I would love to be able to stay on.
No problem.
But I was a late call up, and I've only got 30
You were a late call up. me and the commenters are going to get on really well for the next 30 minutes.
Well, I'm going to steal
29 minutes.
I'm going to steal one of your catchphrases, and I'm going to say to the commenters, Kev's on, didn't be Bamstein, all right? Kev, you have a good one, mate.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you so much for jumping on. Thank you very much. So, I didn't tell you that when we actually logged on, that I was going to be myself for the last half hour, and I'm going to be myself for the last half hour. So, I'm going to ask your question. So, put any questions in the comments, and I will ask them. It is International Week, so I think your questions might get a bit daft. I watched the Scotland game yesterday, and I was really quite annoyed. Obviously, Scotland were rotten. Scotland were really, really rotten. But then again, after watching the second half of Athens on Thursday night, you could actually tell that the Greeks were the better side. And sometimes the better sides lose games of football, sometimes the better sides lose games of football. I'm just going to be starting comments as well as I go through. So sometimes better sides lose games of football, and I think that's what happened on Thursday night. And yesterday, the Greeks showed that they're a wee bit step above Scotland. What really got me though is the abuse that Anthony Ralston got, where Andy Robertson seemed to get off with getting abuse because Robertson plays for Liverpool, and Andy Robertson and Anthony Ralston, doesn't he? I mean, Ralston, didn't get me wrong, he's a solid enough player, and I shouted for him to come on last week for Alistair Johnson, who was having a nightmare last week. But Ralston yesterday didn't do anything. Ralston yesterday didn't really do nothing wrong. He wasn't a cause for the goals that the Greeks scored. He didn't offer much going forward, but nobody offered anything going forward. You're talking about a midfield where you've got £40 million guys like Billy Gilmore and Scott McTominay, But then the first thing I see an hour after it, when you look at Celtic News Now, is one of the Celtic sites. Is one of the Celtic sites quote tweeting, obviously Rangers fans, right? Having a go at Anthony Ralston, having a go at one of our own, And I'm like, how can you actually do that? Do you not actually have a look at these guys that you're actually going to quote tweet first? And then, then you get an article out at slagging Ralston, who did play well in Athens. I mean, bottom line, the bottom line is Tony's a squad player for us, and it was great to actually hear that Alistair Johnson played really well last night for the Canada against the USA in the Tariff Trophy game, which the Canadians won 2-1. Johnson had a poor game against Rangers, and he also had a poor game against Mexico on the Thursday night by all the reports that I actually read. And it was like, you're going, oh no, maybe he's going for a wee slump. So it was good that he actually got himself fired up last night and got himself through. So Canada ended up, was it third place in the CONCACAF league, and they got one over the USA, who are getting a bit of a slaughter and actually by their press, and Cameron Carter-Vickers is actually getting a bit of a slaughter in the press as well. For the report I read, it says that Cameron Carter-Vickers was slow for the 2 goals. Having a look, Pochettino is not well liked by the American journalists, it seems, and it just seems to be that every choice that he's making is actually getting scrutinised to a minute level with the American press. So if we actually seen it, I can only go with what I've read. That seemingly Alistair Johnson was great, and Cameron Carter-Vickers wasn't too great. Now, I'll come to you, lads. Come to you in the comments now. Who would you play on Saturday? Do you think Alistair Johnson starts, or would you play Tony Ralston? And also, I'm going to ask you, after Kuhn's non-appearance against Rangers, do you start Yang instead of Kuhn against Hearts on Saturday? Let's have a wee look at the comments. We'll talk about Adam Idah as well. Here we go. P. McLaughlin, Stuart Kerr was better than Barkas. Right, I've got a question for you. I've got a really question for you. Who was a better goalkeeper then? Was it Sylvester Stallone, Barkas, or Stuart Kerr? Or who's the better actor, Sylvester Stallone or Jerry Taylor? Because they're both goalies. You know what I mean? Jerry will be in the new to actually. He'll be in the new to actually give me abuse. Sorry, Jerry. John McDowell, I'm sure Jerry Taylor is available as well. I'm sure Jerry would love to actually sit on the bench at Celtic, but it's not going to happen, mate. It isn't going to happen. Studs, Lanigan comes in, gives a poem, Kev. That's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. Sorry, I can't put you. I can't subject you to be giving you poetry. Paddy Laverty comes in. Kev, are you jealous of Chris's hair? Of course I am, mate. Who wouldn't be jealous of Chris's hair, man? It's an absolute mane. It's a flowing lock of Vidal Sassoon. It is great. Jerry Smith, who won with Mexico and Panama? I think Mexico won 2-0. Somebody in the comments can keep me right there. Rob Lilly. Right, let's start. Obviously, Martin O'Neill's Barrowlands Art and Design on Thursday night. It is now it's sold out. I hope to see a lot of you there because I will be there. And I might be doing something on the stage as well. But didn't let that put you off. No gone. Kev, Rob Lilly. Did you want Martin O'Neill to get the job at the time? His Leicester City side didn't exactly play good football. Now, yes, I did want Martin O'Neill to get the job at that time. At that time, when you look at British football at that time, you had Alex Ferguson and Arsene Wenger, and next you had Martin O'Neill. Martin O'Neill was a top English Premiership manager at that point, and for us to actually get him was out of this world, completely out of this world. You're talking about at the time when we got him, he was actually being linked as a successor to Alex Ferguson. So I think we got the third best manager in Britain at that point, and I think he'd done us a great job. Look, he's the best manager I've seen in my lifetime at Celtic. He has been. I know a lot of folk will have a look at Brendan Rodgers' invincible trebles and stuff and that, but I have a look at what O'Neill done. He brung the club back in from the cold. He gave the club an image and a character which was really himself. He got us to a European final. He gave us our pride back in Europe, and that was really, really what we actually wanted. He gave us a whole load of memories in European football, and we've got to remember he was up against a half decent Rangers side at that point. Okay, it was no by the books. They weren't properly registered and stuff like that, but it was still a good Rangers side. But he did give me the best 5 years that I've probably had supporting Celtic. And the older I get, I think that's more important than what Brendan's given us, actually. I think he is. You can disagree with what you want, but somebody asked me the opinion, and I thought, yes, we were really, really lucky to get him. I remember I was on holiday that year with a load of guys from my Celtic supporters bus, and we got talking. We got speaking to a group of guys from Leicester, and they says that we were getting one of the best managers in Britain, and I think that proved to be the case. Liam Devine comes in, especially in Europe. He was up against an EBT'd out their bin Rangers side. He drove them to liquidation. They had no choice to try and cheat the tax system in order to compete. I completely agree with that. Jim comes in. Do you not think Henrik and Mark Viduka would have scored a ridiculous amount of goals if no injury in Lyon? There was earlier on that season, you have a look back at, I think they bet Hearts. I think it's the infamous game when Lubo Moravcik actually sits on the ball and we've got Henrik Larsson and Mark Viduka up front. And they two guys were absolutely talented. They were really, really talented centre forwards. Henrik Larsson, the best player I've seen in my lifetime. Best player I'll ever see playing for Celtic. And you had Mark Viduka. Viduka was a talent. He was flawed, but he was a talent. Would I like to have seen both of them play for Martin O'Neill? It was never going to be on, because basically Martin O'Neill Martin O'Neill tells a story that he spoke with Mark when he got the Celtic job, and Mark made it clear that he had no intention of returning back to Celtic Park. So what we done, we got £6 million from Leeds United for Viduka, and we went and got to Sutton. So looking at how that turned out, right? I'm quite glad we didn't see Mark Viduka and Henrik Larsson in a Martin O'Neill Celtic team, because then we would have missed out on Chris Sutton. I think that's a sliding door moment I'm quite willing to accept. There's some of them I'm not quite willing to accept, but I think that is a sliding door moment that I'm quite willing to accept. I mean, we can go back. I mean, I said to Chris earlier on, I mean, Larsson hadn't got injured against Lyon, would John Barnes' reign been any different? I don't think so. I think it was always going to end in tears. You speak to guys from that team and Barnes wasn't liked in the dressing room. And that played a massive part in the Inverness game. This is quite weird. I thought his biggest mistake was Ian Wright. I thought there was better options. I thought there was better options than bringing in his pal Ian Wright. And that's nothing against Ian Wright. I mean, apart from his horrible chicken tonight advert, and he done that celebration. Did he do it at Ibrox when he scored at Ibrox, or did Berkovic do it? That was Berkovic. That was a horrible season. That was it. That was the game Paul Lambert broke his jaw. No, George Alberts broke Paul Lambert's jaw at that point. Dived on him, won a penalty kick. That was a horrible day as well. We had a lot of horrible days against Rangers at that point. We really did. But we get over it. We move on. And I'm still here. Danny boy, I didn't hate Ian Wright. No. He was wrong place, wrong time. His career was done at the point when he actually came to us. There's a bit of a Roy Keane scenario with him here. There is a bit of a Roy Keane scenario with him, that he probably came to Celtic far too late, and we wouldn't have got any of the two players in their prime anyway. I think we actually need to have a look at that. Charles Wilson, Kev Yang should start ahead of Kuhn. I think on current form, yes, you're probably right. But then again, should we actually try and get Kuhn to play out the way of this dip in form? Or is there something in the background where we can actually say that Kuhn has now checked out? His agents told him that a move's happening maybe in the summer, and he's checked out after the Bayern game. The Bayern game was his last chance that he needed to impress, because nobody is going to be watching the Scottish Premier League. So his move is already done. So he maybe be playing with a handbrake on from now to the end of the season. And if that's the case, then Yang replaces him every day of the week for me, because with what we've actually seen, if we look at the Greg Taylor situation, then does Brendan Rodgers play guys that have actually checked out? Or are we looking too much into it? Is the Greg Taylor situation mainly because he's had a domestic upheaval? But then who says that? Was it Brian Clough actually says that? when was it Roy Keane? I think it was Roy Keane that actually says it, when somebody says, oh, he's just had a kid, and Roy Keane says, well, it wasn't him that gave birth. But it could be there's something going on behind the scenes there, but if everything's all equal, then you've got to have a look at it. Greg Taylor's has not signed a new contract with Celtic, and he hasn't played since. So that's the fact. That's the facts of the matter. Let's have a wee look at some of the comments here. Shamrig, yes, Kuhn's checked out. Bye bye. P. O'Neill can't stand right. I'm going to defend him. He always says good things about Celtic when he's on the overlap, and Monty comes in and says that Ian Wright a good guy. He's always got good things to say about the club, and I think he knows himself. Great club, just at the wrong time. He was actually there. Let's have a wee look. Pegleg, Eddie Jordan fought with his friends and his family. I actually forgot that he was a shareholder at Celtic Park until it was mentioned last week, and he was a great supporter of the Celtic supporter, the Celtic Foundation. Rob Lully, I'm just having a look to see what other things we got. Well, we talk about Adam Idah. We may as well talk about Adam Idah. It's split in the comments here. Joe Hamilton comes in. When Big Idah gets the delivery, Big Idah delivers. It was a fair goal that he scored last night. It was a nice finish. Quality goal from Adam last night. He's your man for improvement goals. Tony, I think that's an interesting point, because I read the interviews with him, with what he says after the game last night, and he speaks about that he knows that he hasn't been playing well, but this is his best season in terms of returning and goal returns, and he's very, very happy with that. He talks about that Brendan Rodgers has made him love football again, and so. I don't know. I think somebody asked him. I think I have Jungle Lion. Oh, sorry, Jungle Lion. You one of the first comments today. I expect you'll be complaining to Ofcom about us about that. Who was Idah shushing last night? He was probably shushing. He was probably shushing. Easy for me to say. Guys like me. And even though he says it was about what he read after the Republic Island win in Bulgaria, no, he was probably shushing guys like me who called him out last week in his performance in the Celtic Rangers game. As he says, he scored 14 goals for Celtic this season. He scored 3 in the Champions League. I'm not aware of that, Patrick. Sorry. I'm not aware that Ian Wright did it once call us out, but recently he's had good thing to say about us. So he says he was shushing the online abuse that he was actually getting. And fair play to the big fella. If the big fella wants to shush me for now to the end of the season by banging in 10 goals, delivering us a league title and another Scottish Cup, then I'll be quite happy. If he runs up to my face and shushes in my face, I will be quite happy with that, because some players need to actually get. Sometimes you need to poke the beast. Sometimes you really need to do and actually get them to play. Christopher McGowan agrees with me. Don't mind Idah giving it the shoes. Bit of resilience, bit of attitude. Chris, we have to remember that Idah is still under 25. Peak powers on their way. That's quite weird, that, eh? Now, we're given the two main signings that we've got. Idah's 24 and Arne Engels is 21. And Engels is getting a bit of a tough time. Let's not argue about it. He is getting a bit of a tough time about his performances. I think generally he's been all right, but I think at other times he's actually struggled with what it is to be a Celtic player. But that's fine. I'm happy with that. Some guys take it easier than others, and other guys take a wee while to bed in. What I would say is, I think any time where we've had a horror show, we've had a systematic failure rather than an individual player failure. And I could list games like the games against Bruges, Zagreb, Young Boys, Rangers a couple of times, even Ross County away, even the first half against Aberdeen, where if our system, when we play out for the when we play out from the back, we struggle. We really do struggle, and the team then seems to not believe in what is actually getting told. And sometimes we play through it, and other times that we don't. You can actually say, you look at Easter Road, our two recent defeats, Easter Roads and at Celtic Park against Rangers. They followed a very, very similar format. Started poor, played well in the second half. We played well in the second half. Probably should have got something out of both games, but we didn't. That's football. That sometimes happens. So I'm going to bring up my ball here, because this is the kind of where my point was on Friday as well, before I was rudely interrupted by somebody chapping my door, funnily enough. My ball. If Rangers fans, I'm not going to keep that in there, that's good, are willing to give Raskin support, we need to offer the same to Arnie. Right. My point on Friday was this. Arnie Engels is 6 months into his Celtic career. And the boy Raskin, who is having a good season. Again, I watched a bit of the Belgian game last night. Didn't listen to what the Daily Record tells you. The 10-15 minutes I watched of the Belgian game last night, he never touched the ball. But I was flicking in between the channels. He came to Rangers as one of those wonder kids. Absolute wonder kid. This and that. It's now 2 years down the line, and I'm not disagreeing. But my point is some guys take a wee while to settle into the Scottish game, and we can't write off these guys. You have a look at the first 6 months for Nicholas Kuhn, right? You look at the first 6 months. The first 6 months of this season of Nicholas Kuhn, absolutely flying, and knew he's hit a wee bit of a wobble. Arnie Engels is 21. It could take him a year to bed in. It could take him 18 months to bed. And Matt O'Reilly wasn't the Matt O'Reilly that we sold to Brighton in the first 12 to 15 months that he was actually here. So sometimes you've got to give these guys who have got an obvious talent, and I'm not saying Raskin's got an obvious talent, I'm talking about Arnie Engels here, right? So sometimes you've got to give these guys time to bed in before they become the player that they're meant to be. And I think Engels is that type of player. I'm not 100% sure what his best position is. I thought he could have been a 6, but no, I'm not even willing to chuck that out with the dishwasher. I'm not even willing to chuck that baby out with the bath water either. I'm not. I think he could still be a 6, whereas I think he's got the physicality there, but he needs to bulk up a bit. I just think that we need some more legs and physicality. There I've said it. The physicality clacks on at 53 minutes in. I do think that we actually need some physicality and pace in there, and I would like to see somebody alongside Engels with that. I also think that Rodgers might change. It depends what happens in the summer. Okay, Kieran, I'm going to bring you up. With that logic, Kev, why hasn't Bernardo, before injury, getting the starts over Engels? Paulo Bernardo settled for a year. I don't think he's been good enough. I don't think that he's kicked on the way that I thought. I don't think he's kicked on the way that we hoped. I really didn't. Pigeon M comes in. Sorry, Kev, but Matt O'Reilly was progressing with every game he's played. You could say there's a player. You could say there was a player there. I can say there's a player in Engels. I can quite hand on heart say there's a player in Engels, but we might not see the best of him for about a year. I'm going to judge him at this point next season. Really are. and hopefully that he's progressed into the player I believe that's actually in there. But I do believe that he needs help in the middle of that park. I'm having a look at this summer. So here we've got the problem in the summer. We've already spoke about that Kuhn might actually River C. I'll bring this up. We need the next Canati. I think everybody needs the next Canati. That's the problem. Every club will be looking for the next Canati. Conte or Canati, I don't know. I'm just blethering now, trying to see out the last 5 minutes here. What was I actually saying? Midfield. Right. In the summer, I don't think we've got a Matt O'Reilly to sell. I don't think we've got enough players to sell where we have a net a transfer profit. So we're probably going to need to spend money. I'm a bit worried that the football doctor thinks it's 2017 and we're bringing back Kieran Tierney and we're linked to bringing back Christopher Idah. But we might need to we need to actually like possibly have a spend in the summer and not have a net profit. So I think we've got a problem there. I don't think we're going to get the 20-25 million for Kuhn, and I don't think there's anybody else in that squad if it's selling two our main first team players, which we can't actually do. The other problem that we've actually got is Brendan Rodgers is in his last year of a contract, and it doesn't seem likely that he's going to sign an extension at this precise moment in time. I think if he was going to sign an extension, I think the talks would have started and we would have actually heard about them by now. So when I heard or read about the Christopher Idah link with Tierney coming back, I was wondering if we were going all in and Rodgers was going all in to actually win and take us that next step in Europe next year. And we were really, really just going to chuck what we've done by younger guys and then sell them on for a profit. Right, that we were really, really just going for the one now. For those who watch the NFL, I know a lot of when they watch the NFL, I thought we were going to do an LA Rams and just go all out and buy big name hitters in Rodgers last year. But then on the other side, we've got, if this is Rodgers last year, will the club actually be willing to actually back him in the transfer market this summer, knowing full well that they're going to need to bring in another manager who may want another big slice of transfer cake. And I think that's a worry for us in the summer. That is a real worry for us in the summer. What are we actually going to do? It will be really, really interesting. It will be interesting to see what the football doctor actually does for us. Some of you have been asking me, Celtic follower, did you see the Albion Rovers news, Kev? No, what's the Albion Rovers news? Can somebody let me know what the Albion Rovers news is? Because let's have a wee look at the comments that were brought in. Quinny, who was meant to be here today, but he's driving, he's been delayed. Thoughts on dropping Kuhn for Idah rather than Yang? So is that like a change of shape that you'd be going there for Quinny? Would it be? Let me think about that. Idah. So that would be my Idah there. I don't know. I think if Kuhn is getting dropped, then it will be for Yang. But as somebody pointed out, I think I started the comment that South Korea play later than Japan on Tuesday, so Yang is likely to get back later than the Japanese boys, so that might factor into it. Is anybody else really, really worried that you look at the teams that have done a number on us this season, especially Hibs and Rangers in the last couple of weeks, that Hearts might actually do the same if they believe that if Monty, Maeda and Jota either side of either Kev. Okay, I can work with that. I'm into that. I'm into that. That's a good point, Monty. Thank God somebody's in the comments keeping me right when it comes to football tactics, because I didn't really know about football tactics, and you will actually know that. This is an NFL joke. Get Matthew Stafford and play him as a number 8. For those who like the NFL will like that. Jai Connolly, Larkin, we'll do have. I really, really hope. I really, really hope we do. I think we just need to win. And the bottom line is, if we now at the end of the season, I think Brendan needs to earn his money, and he earned his money for this point onwards last season. I think he needs to get the team and reset them. I think the 2 recent defeats, they were so. They were so. Doesn't matter if you're 13 points clear, but the reason that they happened is probably because we're 13, 16 points clear. I think that is a reason, and I think the team need to get reset. And even though Rodgers and the players say it's not a thing, it is a thing. The fact that we're that far clear, we need to actually regain that focus, that ruthlessness, and that is what we need to actually do. And that's where Brendan's got that's what Brendan's got to work on. I'm sure Brendan this week, or maybe depending on when the players come back for international duty, there'll be a PowerPoint presentation. I'm sure there will be. They'll be sitting in that wee room at Lennoxtown, the lights will go down, and he'll be sitting there. He'll be sitting there, and he will take them through a PowerPoint presentation. And I'm sure, like the key performance indicators will be: we want to win the league as soon as possible. We want to win the Scottish Cup. We want to get as many points as possible. We want to score a set amount of goals. Players will be set and individual goals as well to actually try and get that intensity and performance back. And I think that's what will be happening in Lennoxtown this week. I really hope that is what's happening in Lennoxtown this week, because that's what needs to actually happen. Lads, he's been absolutely brilliant putting up for me for the last 31 minutes. I'm quite glad that there's still 1,200 here. Rob Lilly, I'm not going to answer this question. I ken it's not a Thursday, but yeah, as you do know, I like music. Thanks, Kev. Next question. Who's better, the Verve or the Stone Roses? You don't have to answer that till Thursday, though. I'll answer it now. It's always going to be the Roses. Thanks, lads. I'm sure there'll be a full house on tomorrow. And you won't need to put up with me. So everybody, thank you in the chat. Thanks to Chris for jumping on. He was a late sub. And just remember, everybody, didn't be bams to each other. Thank you very much.